Okie doke. Right, we have got our neck zip going in, so it's going to be exactly the same as this one. That's why I'm just showing you one. So I've just clipped it on and I've marked where I'm starting and where I'm finishing. So I'm only starting from my stitching line here, and I've got my zip foot on. I've got my needle position far to the left as I can go. I've got my purple thread on top, my green thread underneath. So what I'm doing is I'm starting exactly, putting my needle down as close as I can get to that stitching line. I'm going forward and reverse. And when I get to my zip, I'll just give it a little butt up there, and I just push it up against my foot. So just take that out as you go. So you want it nice and close. Please don't sew over your finger. Now what I do now is I zip my zip up so that I don't have to worry about working with that anymore and it getting in the road. Push your zip up against and stop at your next mark, or where it ends, because it really doesn't matter, because it can't go anywhere else but there. Okay, push your scissors if you've got it and it will lock it off. Then you check it. So now you turn it over and you check you're nice and close, which you are. Looks amazing. Oops, nice and close. Now if it's not close enough, you can go back. So if it's not close enough, just go back with your foot and just start in before that bar and really, really push it in. So I actually can see there's a couple of places I didn't go close enough. So you see how I'm pushing it against it, because I want it really nice and tight so that it sits nice and flat as long as your zip does up. One moment. There you go. Then you check it. Make sure you haven't gone too close, because that would just rock your boat. Nope, we're good. Our zip can still do up and undo. Okay? Now we are going to put this part on the other side. So what we're going to do is always clip your threads as you go, because it makes life easy. So now we're going to get our little mark that we can't even see because of the fabric. Brilliant. I think that's it there. Very hard to see on this fabric because I used a dark pen, didn't I? It was very unintelligent. I think that's it there. Oh, yep, I can see it now. So line up your mark, put your clips in, and stitch that little bit, and then undo your zip. Now check, before you start stitching, just check, because this is going to be sewn up here. Yep, we're all good. So I'm just going to start from the bottom piece here, and this one's on a bit of a curve, so you've got to be the boss. So just put your needle down exactly at the bottom there. By the way, I've chopped off the hard bit of the zip. So I haven't done it, but I need to put some fray check on there so that the bottom of the zip's never ever fray. Because you can see it's nice and tidy in here, but I haven't fray checked. I've just chopped off the bottom of the zip because I used a longer zip. So I need to fray check that. And you're not going to ever see it because there's going to be a lining on top of this, but I still like to make sure that I've done all those things, and then you know it's not ever going to pull away and fray. So I'm actually going to take that out, it's easier. There's my mark, there's my mark. Right, so go forward and reverse. Now what you want to do is make sure you go around this curve, because it's quite a curve. Like that, it's actually easier not to have anything in there, no clips or anything, and just use your fingers. Make sure it's really, really nice and tight. Remember, you can do a second row. There's nothing stopping you from going and doing a second row, which I often do, because it's easier just to get it in and then tighten it. And you can see here I've used a really thick thread on one side and a thinner thread on the other, so my bobbin thread is pulled it tighter, so it makes a nice finish on the top. I took my tension down 2 notches so that I could have white underneath and it pulled really nice and tight on the top. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and I'm going to unzip my zip. Again, I might just have to put that needle up to get it past. And sometimes when you do that, you get a little bit of loop of thread, so just do that and keep on sewing. Okay, and only go to that zip end. Do not go any further than the zip end. And then check it, and if you need to go tighter, do your second row. Okay, so I'm just going to cut my thread. Always cut your threads, because if they get caught in the zip, it can stop them from doing up. Okay, then you can check it, make sure you're happy with it. See, it needs to be closer. Can you see? It needs to be closer. Okay, so it's really good to just do one run and then check it's closer. Check that it needs to go closer. So I'm going to start from this side because I can see my stitching line and I know I can go in closer from this side. So it's quite handy when you do that, and that's why I always use coloured threads when I'm doing jobs like this, so I can actually see where my stitching line is. Ooh, geez. You can tell that I'm a bit of a fiend, can't you? Look at all these scissors. Look at all this. I think there's another pair in here. Look, I'm a real scissor fiend. I think there's even another pair in here. Oh, yep, look at that. I like scissors. Funny, eh? Strange person. Right. But heaven help anybody if they touch my scissors. They're not allowed. Right, I'm needing to zip my zip up, so just lift your needle up. Zip that up, make sure nothing else is in the road. And finish stitching that little bit, and just be careful that you're doing one stitch there. Make sure everything is flat. So this is the only time you have to make that really, really nice and tight. So, you know, if you need to do that second row, absolutely do it. I pretty much do it every time I make a zip because I like it to be nice and tight. Now this is where you're going to be clever. So, my markings weren't very good, were they? Because now I've done 2 rows of stitching. I'm going to have to trim off a little bit of that and trim off a little bit of that, and I'm not unstitching it. So be it. My bag's going to be just a little bit shorter, narrower, and too bad because my markings weren't right. Anyway, so now what you do is you are going to fold your little tag together with the wrong size together, and you're just going to pull it up so it's like that. So we're making our little tag become part of our seam. It's really good. So I'm actually going to put a pin in here because I really can't clip this to show you. So I'm putting a pin in there. So what happens when it's got to go further. When it's finished stitching, I'll have a really nice little tab of that colour. Very, very tricky to show you. So just fold in half. This goes on top. Oh, I'm out by like ½ an inch. That was ridiculous. Never mind. This is showing you what you do if you do that. You all know that you get to see all of my mistakes. Somebody even commented that they liked the fact that they saw all my mistakes. Didn't realise I made that many. And see what we're trying to do? We're trying to get it so we get a little tab of that. But see how that's coming up way too far? I only want to see a tiny bit, so I'm just going to repin that till I get it right. And I can see what I've done, it's not even. So just pull that out and go like that. That feels better. You're only going to sew about 1 centimetre away from your zip. Don't try and go all the way up. And the reason you don't need to go all the way up is because it's all going to be top stitched. So if I go like that and show you now, that's better. When it sits flat, you're just going to see this little tab and the rest is going to go in I've still got a little bit too much there, so I'm going to pull it down a little bit. I just want to see just that tab. And this just makes it sit flat. So I'm just going to pull this like that. Cool. And I'm only going to there. Then check it again. Don't stitch it till you're happy with it. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that seam a little bit less because I did my stitching too close to the edge. You can fudge anything at this stage. Just make sure that when you're sewing, you're going to catch that seam in. Yep. Because it's all going to be top stitch, so it's going to be really strong. So there are times when you use pins. So I'm just going to show you how I've cheated. So instead of having my raw edges together, I've moved my seam over so that when that sits, I get to see nearly all of my stitching. And remember, this is going to go flat. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. Okay, I've got a little weird thing happening there. Hang on a second. Just got a bit of a weird thing happening. Just going to undo that again. And I might just bring that up a little bit flatter. You can tell when it's not sitting perfectly flat. You've just got to keep mucking around and getting that just right. And repinning and getting it right. Let's have a look now. That's much better. Okay, I'm happy. I'm going to stitch that. Right, I'm going to leave the same foot on, this foot here, but I am going to move my needle position to the right. I was just thinking what I was going to do. Move my needle position to the right. I will take off the purple thread. Take off the purple thread, and I'll just put the green thread on because I'm sewing my seam. Now the green reeler thread is a very large reeler thread, so I'm going to take off my small reeler thread here, and I'm going to put my extra thread stand up and put my reeler thread on here like this, or I can go onto here and put it up through there. So I'm going to put onto here for now just to show you, because not everybody has a thread stand. These are literally the cheapest thing you'll ever buy when they're straight, and they're very, very good. So I'm just going to thread this thread here, and I'm going to use that so I can see my seam, and then if I have to undo it, I can. Now what I do when I'm doing jobs like this is I put my stitch length on a long stitch and I actually tack it on. I turn it over and check it, and then if I'm happy I restitch it, only because if it's not right it's going to not sit flat. So I'm now going to tack this in with that seam, and I'm following my pin lines. Okay, so I'm not back stitching or anything because I'm actually just tacking it in and making sure I'm catching my seam on the other side because I've moved it, and I am pulling my zip end down to make it much, much easier to stitch, and I'm stopping quite a way away. So if I do that, if I draw that, I'm stopping quite a way away, like there, away from my seam. I'm not going to my seam, okay? And the reason being because it's all going to be top stitched, okay? So I'm only sewing to literally there. Oh, and I backstitched. I said don't backstitch. That's just a natural thing you do, isn't it? How funny. Don't chop off any of this till you turn it over and make sure you're happy, happy, happy. Right, so see how I haven't pulled that tight enough? That's why I need to pull that even tighter, because it's sitting up too high. It's going to go like that and I'm not going to be pleased with it. So yeah, that was kind of dumb. So anyway, this is the part that you guys like when I make a mistake. So just undo that, and luckily it's a long stitch. Nice big one. I need my good ones. I need my sharp ones, can't get into it. There you go, see this is what these are for. Good quick unpick. There we go. I reckon that's done it. I felt it go click, and that means that I had really caught that. Brilliant, look at that. So now I'm actually happy to sew this. So I'm now going to just go over the same row of stitching, but I'm going to put my stitch length back to my normal stitch length, which would be about 2.5. Yep, 2.5. I'm not going to backstitch because it's all going to be sewn into the seam, and I'm just going on the inside of that line because guess what? I'm not unpicking that. It's staying in. It doesn't matter. It's actually staying in because you are going to be top stitching it all, and it's absolutely fine to stay in. And cut. You're going to do the same to the other end, but I just want to show you what I did. Can you see that I put that up too high, so now I have to trim that off. So that was a bit dumb, but doesn't matter. I'm going to trim that off as well. I'm now reshaping my bag. Oh, do I want to cut that off now? Yep, it's going. Too late, there's no going back. It's gone. Now I'm going to do the other side. Hey, it's starting to look like a bag. Look at that. Starting to look quite like a bag, but I am going to get a smaller bag now because I stuffed up. Right, so now I'm going to sew this side, and I'm going to do exactly the same, but I haven't got much to work from now. So I'm just going to put these, actually it's not too far out, but it's still very annoying. So I'm going to pin there, then I'm going to open it up and check. Oh, it's actually perfect. What are the odds? And so I'll just sew this one this time because it looks like it's really good. So I don't have to worry. How funny how one can go right and the other one you can muck around with. So there we go. Bring that down and just come to about there and lock it off. Just throw those in there. Excellent. Right, now what we do now is we get our little roly-poly, this thing, and we roll our, oh look, I've caught my thread. Look. Jeez. Okay, we're just going to roll this flat. My tiny, tiny little seam up here that I've cheated, but it made it sit flat. Roll that. Now, you know how I said about the fray check? Make sure there's no threads. Just fray check on these edges because you have cut them completely off. So just a little bit of fray check, even though it's going to be on the inside, it just you know then it's all done. And I chop these off because I don't need them. Yeah, it's all going to be top stitched down in a minute, but I might as well fray check those now. I don't need to worry about the fabric, but the ends of the zips you do. Then that can dry. Cool. Now that you've done your bag and you are going to be doing a lining, I am only going to want to top stitch one side of this, and I'll tell you why. So I've top stitched both sides of this, and I'm only going to top stitch, I've got to think about this. I'm only going to top stitch this side because when I cut my lining, I've got to, hang on, I've got to think. I've got to use my brain. This is going to be a pocket, and then that's going to be a pocket. Okay, just wait till I've cut my lining because I can't, I've got to think. Remember I told you I had to think. Right, let's get the lining, and then I'll think. It's really, really hard to think. Okay, so the right side is that side, so you're going to put wrong sides together. You're going to cut your lining, and that's going to be a pocket, which is going to be fine like that, and this is going to be a pocket like this. So that's going to be a pocket like that, that's going to be a pocket like that, that's going to be a separate pocket. So it's this one I should have not stitched. What a goosebump. This one I should have not stitched, so I'm going to run a stitching line through there that no one will ever know to separate the two pockets, don't I? Because I want that to be its own pocket. So what a goosebump I am, because I got it the opposite way around. So I should have top stitched this one, because this one is going to just open it up and be a pocket, and it's going to go to there. So it was this one that I shouldn't have done. So don't make that mistake. So do this one first, top stitch both sides. Do this one, top stitch this side. Then when you put your lining on, top stitch that one. So yep, you've got to do it in the right order. So I'm going to top stitch this side and this side, and then I'm going to put the lining on, then I'm going to re-top stitch this with invisible thread through there, and you won't see it as long as I've got some invisible thread. Yeah, this could be a challenge. Well, maybe I'll just use mauve. So yeah, there's a challenge for young players. So here's where I screwed up. So look what I'm going to do. Reshape my bag to make it work. Who said we can't have artistic license, and we have now rechanged the whole shape of that, and it makes no difference to my finished bag. So top stitch this side, top stitch this side. This side, I don't think I want it to be a feature, so I'm going to use the green thread, and this side I'll use the purple thread. So I'm going to use a heavy purple thread, and I'm going to top stitch on this side. So I'm just going to give it a little press with the iron. Yep. See, thought I was all clever getting it ready beforehand and didn't think. So there you go. I should have just done it all at once. Now when I'm top stitching, I use my zip foot because I love the zip foot for doing this. I find it really, really easy, and I'm going to use my thick Oriful 12 weight thread. I've got a 90 top stitch needle in. Have I? Yep, I got a 90 top stitch needle in. So I'm going to put my machine onto triple straight stitch. Then I'm going to move my needle position over, and I'm going to lengthen my stitch length out to like 5. So I'm going to have a really long stitch length. Actually, I think I did 5.5 when I did it. I'm moving my needle position over to there, and I'm going to thread that thread up, and I'm going to go really slowly and do that on this side. I'm just going to use that green thread, all right, which I could have done first had I used my brains, but that's okay. I quite like doing the top stitching, but you do need to go slow, and man, you need to think when you're putting zips in. Yeah, that was a bit of a faux pas, wasn't it? Never mind. Okay, so I'm going on this side, and I'm putting my zip foot right there. In fact, I'll use my little piece of tearaway. Make sure I'm happy with it. Yep, that's what I want. And then join it up to here. Remember 1, 2, 3. So always think 1, 2, 3. Cool. And really, I want to go really fast, but you just can't. 1, 2, 3. So I need to turn it a little bit. Make sure it's all flat. So some of you ladies have been doing these bags with me, and you will relate that I do sometimes change the pattern a little bit. So when I finish this, I will show you what I've done to the other bag. I did put in an extra zip, but I'm not going to do it on this one, so that you can see what I've done. So just carry on. I love the fabrics though, and I must admit I do really like the giggly, because it just keeps my fabrics nice and firm. Now when I get to here, I'm just going to stop and zip my zip up, so I don't have to worry about that zip getting in my road. There we are. So you can see why you don't need to go close to the zip, because you're top stitching. See, I can't help myself. I want to go fast. See, because you're top stitching, so you can see why you don't need to go fast. Make sure it's flat. You don't need to go too close because you're already going back over it anyway. Okay. And there you have your top stitch zip. So again, what I should have done is top stitch this side, top stitch that side, top stitch that side, and I should have left that side. All right, I shouldn't have done that middle top edge, but that's just par for the course, isn't it, at the end of the year, doing dumb stuff like that. I'm just going to cut my threads because I've got a thread lurking around here. And now I'm going to just do the other side, but I don't really want it to be a feature. So I'm just going to use the green thread and just edge stitch that quite close. So I'm just going to use this. So I will do that little bit in the break, and then I'll come back and show you how to join it all together. All right. Thank you.